Hey everybody, how you doing? Sorry I didn't get a video up yesterday. I did not have a lot of time to review anything, so I didn't want to try to do something and then like sell it short. And on top of that, I've been a lot more tired these last couple of days because in my house we have a new puppy that is super cute, but at night it's also super squeaky, and we're trying to deal with that. So we've been dealing with less sleep, which leads to less focus, and I apologize for not having one done. Hopefully that yawn is the only one that shows up in this video, but who knows, we'll see. All right, Enneagram 5s, let's get into it. Moving to them, we're officially crossing the halfway mark. That's really exciting, but I feel like we've only kind of scratched the surface on all this stuff. But maybe I'll do more after the initial 9 and we'll get into some of the detail stuff if you're interested in it. Like, let me know if you're like, hey, this is great, keep it going, you know, forever or until you die, whichever happens first. Whatever. Okay, 5s. 5s, that's 10. 5, so 5s get into a different section of the Enneagram. It's a little bit different than what we've seen before. The Enneagram can be broken down into 3 subsets, and they all have specific names, but what helps me remember them is that there are certain kind of emotions that go with different numbers, basically. So 2, 3s, and 4s are all kind of identity obsessed in some way. 2s want their identity to be found by helping people. 3s want their identity to be seen as always successful, and 4s want their identity to just be like their identity and their uniqueness and all that. But once you cross over to like 5, 6, and 7, you're not dealing with that kind of thing anymore. Instead, what you find with 5, 6s, and 7s is you have groups of people that are kind of fear-based. That the way they behave, the way they see the world, and the way they approach the world is based on ways of trying to control their fear. And the way a 5 does that is 5s are, I'm going to use the negative term for now, and then we'll get to more positives later. They're hoarders. Not literal hoarders. They're actually quite the opposite of literal hoarders, because 5s don't much care about material objects or much of the physical kind of stuff. That's not what 5s are about. 5s are mental hoarders. They are the people who just consume information all the time. They just absorb it in and hang on to it. But what makes that different than somebody else who might just be a learner who likes to learn things is 5s are doing it so that they can feel secure, so that they can feel safe in some way. Looks like it's bumping up and down a lot. This might be a wiggly video. Sorry, everybody. Better? Worse? That might be better. Okay. So yeah, 5s do it to stay secure. Here's how this works. The world is a really scary place and there's a lot of unknowns. So a 5 would reason the best way to be prepared for a scary, unknowable world is to know as much as I can about everything. So 5s are the kind of learners that they don't want to learn just the requirements of something. They want to dig way down into the real obscure kind of stuff. 5s are people that if they're looking up one way to, like if they need to, like, I don't know, change a light bulb, and there's a quick answer, a 5 is a lot more likely to like search something like changing light bulbs. Watch not just the YouTube video, but if there's anything that's like related to that video, they might watch all that too, just for interest's sake and pack their brain. They might find themselves wandering over into like the history of light bulbs. They might find themselves on pages talking about the economic impact of different types of light bulbs, and just like go on this light bulb rabbit trail and just consume. They can spend all day doing that, just like consuming, and basically making themselves feel safe and secure, maybe superior a little bit, just because of how much they're taking in. But again, they're not taking it in to feel superior, they're taking it in to feel safe. And that's kind of how they deal with their fear. Now, what that creates for the rest of their personality is they don't have a ton of energy to deal with other stuff. They will spend their time reading, learning, taking all of the stuff and just like packing it into their brain like an information hoarder. But they don't always have a lot of energy for, say, like social interactions. So Cron and Stabile mentioned that, you know, school is a weird place for fives. On one hand, it's like perfect for them because like I'm here to learn, load it up, give me all the information you got. But on the other hand, they have to deal with, you know, people. Fives don't have as much energy for just like people and drama and conflict and all that kind of stuff. So instead, a five is more likely to be an observer of social situations. They will stand back and they will watch what happens. They will learn from what happens, but they're not as interested necessarily like getting in there and mixing it up. That's not a part of what they're about. But that low energy thing seems to come up a lot. I don't know how you determine who has the most energy, and I don't know the metric that's, you know, figured out with. But I do know from the reading and the listening and the learning I've done that fives and nines are low energy people, so they will conserve their energy as much as possible. I don't think that means that when you talk to them that they seem boring. I want to make sure that that's not how that comes across. They're not boring people. They're not getting energized to like go out there and conquer the world necessarily. Versus someone like an 8, which we'll hear about in a few days. 8s are super high energy all the time. Like it's rare to see like an 8 worn out, exhausted, or just even withdrawn. Whereas a 5, appearing as a loner or is appearing like you're withdrawn from something is something that's much more likely to happen. Here's how I think of 5s. And maybe this will another kind of downside. Pros and cons, right? Best thing about you is the worst thing about you. You put them in a situation where there's a lot of things to be analyzed. A 5 is going to come up with every possible angle to approach a problem. They're going to look at it and be like, well, there's this idea that we've been learning about, there's this idea, but because they also have some fear base to them, they're going to try to predict the things that could go wrong. And so they're going to keep learning and learning and learning about all these things that could go wrong and all the possible solutions, and they're wonderful for that. They're great. The 5s can be wonderful innovators. Like the positive term instead of hoarder is that 5s are investigators. They want or perceivers. They want to get in and kind of see how things work. That's awesome. Downside, they can do this on like the lowest stakes stuff ever. Lowest stakes stuff, that's fun to say. So for instance, I love to play board games. Board games are amazing. And generally speaking, if I'm playing a game with a bunch of people, I try to keep it pretty speedy because I know there's a lot of people, and if it's my turn, it means they're not playing. So part of me is I always want to like be pretty quick about things. Fives aren't quick at all in these types of situations because they can look at a board, they can look at the scenario, they can look at their cards or all their possibilities, and it's almost paralyzing because like there's so many options. How do you choose one? Do I have enough information to fully decide? I don't know if I can make my move on this. So a 5 is the person who will stare at the board and stare into space and just not be sure which move to make because there's so many possibilities. On the other side, here's another thing that seems to make sense for 5s. Because they gather knowledge as a way to feel secure, the curse of it is there's never enough knowledge for them to feel perfectly safe. So if they were going to do like some massive purchase, like a thing that they, like I gotta buy this thing, first of all, 5s are probably going to be the ones who research everything. They're going to dig deep, find out, they're going to look at the reviews, they're going to look at user reviews as well as like consumer reports and things like that to find out everything they can find out. But the thing is, they're very unlikely to hit a point where they're like, this is it, it's the one, because there's always more to be learned, and that's the downside. I think I have a little bit of 5 in me. which is called a wing. We haven't talked about those. If you want an extension off this series, like, talk about wings. What does that mean? Basically, it means that whatever number you are, there's a chance that you kind of also share traits with the number that's next to you. So 4s can share traits with 3s and 5s, depending. And I think I've got a pretty strong 5 wing, is what that's called. I am the worst at like buying things. I can be impulsive, but I'm usually not. And if it's a large purchase, I will talk myself out of it, because I'll be worried about, like, well, if I do this, maybe that's too much money. Oh my God, is that going to get us in trouble? I don't know what that's going to do. So even if it's something I really, really like, and really, really want, I'll talk myself out of it. Because I'll look at those pros and cons and just sometimes like, nope, too much to risk. There's too much to risk, not worth it. And I'll like scamper away. And that's kind of a 5 thing as well, I think. Might be a me thing, but I think it's a 5 thing. So what's the deal with 5? How do you get to that point of strength? Because in weakness, 5s get more and more hoarder-like. They don't interact with people as much. They try to conserve their energy. They try to conserve their mental expenditures. But on a positive side, they can take all of this analysis that they've been able to do and like channel it in a strong and cool and powerful way. So how do you get there? I don't want to just keep saying love yourself for everything, even though that's a lot of it. But now that we're kind of in that fear triad where 5, 6, and 7 are going to be more fear-based, the people who identify as 5, 6, and 7 will have to approach life as, it's going to be fine. Everything is not as crazy as it seems. And they need to be able to give themselves a little bit of credit for having some control over things. And those are the things that are going to start like moving them forward and making them feel more secure about stuff. Otherwise, they will just, especially for 5s with being such low energy, 5s, if they don't feel safe and don't feel secure, they're not going to spend a lot of time talking to you. They're not going to spend a lot of time with their relationships. They're going to spend all their time like rapidly consuming information and kind of like padding their brain and their life to keep them safe, you know, in case a zombie apocalypse happens. They're the ones who are going to know the most about that and are really going to dig for it. So that's the basics on 5s. That ended on a really negative note. I didn't want to do that. Sorry. But I'm not finding much to pull out right now to flip it around. Sorry, 5s. I wanted to end on more positive than that. They're great thinkers. They're great analyzers. They're awesome. And yeah, I said they're good in the zombie apocalypse. That's good enough. You're fine. Okay. Tomorrow we'll talk about 6s. Which 6s are hard for me to get my brain around sometimes. So we'll see how that one goes. But thank you for watching. If you've got questions on Enneagram stuff, leave some comments. Like, I don't know all the answers, but I can recommend some stuff to you. So leave those down in the comments below. Go ahead and subscribe, and so you can hear more of this stuff at another time. Watch more videos, do a thing, sing a song. La, da, 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 da,